All right, so if we look at what we've covered so far, we started with the business ecosystem, then we started unpacking our customer experience and employee experience. We also looked at deconstructing the experience and understanding from a journey perspective what are some of the important things we need to look at. So when we've got the essence of your brand defined, it's very important that you then go back and look at your customer journey and your employee journey and look at every moment with the customer. Are you infusing that with your essence? Are you pouring your essence like a perfume? Are you spraying it on every part of that experience? Whether I interact with one of your brand ambassadors, or whether I just interact with your product, or whether I go to your website, or whether I get an auto response email from your email system. Every one of those moments are important to feel like it is truly you. So you might be sitting there wondering, now that I've got some of this foundational knowledge, what do I do about this? How do I start making this change? We've got all of the ingredients of the recipe. Now your question might be, so how do we put this together? In following masterclasses, we will go into a lot more detail on the how-to, on the various components like journey mapping, like journey design, like design thinking. For now, I want to just take you through the competencies that your organization needs to start building in order to become really good at orchestrating remarkable experiences. One of the first and most important things, I believe, is a customer-centric culture and an employee-centric culture. Getting back to really the basics so that what we live inside the organization is easy to live with customers and vice versa. The second thing is really refocusing on your customers and your employees. And a lot of companies have a very sophisticated voice of the customer and voice of the employee surveys. They have more data than what they can cope with. The big thing is when you collect data and when you ask people questions about their experience, have the ability to take those insights and start doing something about it. And go back to them and tell them what you're doing. I think the most frustrating things for customers is being asked the same questions over and over, but they never see an actual improvement in the experience. The third thing is looking at your organization critically around structure. Very often, we look at organizations and they're not structured to deliver great experience to employees and customers. They are very much siloed and they're incentivized to work in these silos rather than collaborate. They're incentivized to fragment the customer's journey rather than integrate the customer's journey. So from a leadership perspective, there might be some work to be done around structuring your organization to deliver a great experience for both customers and employees. If we look at that restructuring, there's also the point of accountability. If we look at the customer journey, who owns the customer journey in your organization? Because if we own the journey by committee, often the journey is not orchestrated well. We worked with an amazing brand where we had a project for about 3 months designing a journey for a new product within their business. And when I asked who owns this journey, the CEO raised his hand. And in that moment, I knew I had hope for this brand, that the journey would really come alive with customers because the CEO was willing to raise his hand and say he owns the journey. Now, we know even if you've got a CEO that owns the journey, he's not necessarily responsible for each moment in that journey. So I would challenge you, once you get to unpack your customer journey, you also need moment owners that'll own that specific segment in time, that specific interaction with the customer. Then I think what's also really important is a strategy, having a client-centric strategy and a plan, and building the strategy in such a way that you consider the needs of your employees and consider the needs of your customers and stay true to it. Then there's the whole competency around experience design. Now, we call experience designers experience architects. And it's a very, very specific skill around being able to integrate different disciplines and there isn't a clear-cut recipe of how you get there. My advice and guidance would be just start plotting journeys and start looking at the world from a different perspective, and always ask, what are the emotions I'm evoking in this moment? And what are the emotions I want to evoke in this moment? Then if we look at metrics and measurements, I have worked for accountants and actuaries my entire career. And it's really, really important that we support those accountants and actuaries in understanding the ROI model, the return on investment that they're going to get by giving us funds so we can redesign journeys. That's their job. So in understanding what are some of the benefits, it's really important that you put a baseline measurement in place and that you celebrate your small wins. Often projects run for a really long time, projects take a lot of funding, and often projects don't have concrete deliverables that says, well, this is what we achieved. So I would really recommend that you deliver in small chunks. We use the agile methodology, and often we break our deliveries into sprints, and that once we've achieved a great experience delivery, that we actually celebrate that and that we measure that and talk to people inside the organization about what we've achieved. So in conclusion, the competencies that's really important for your organization to develop skills in is culture, understanding of insights, organization structure and accountability, having a strategy and a plan, experience design, and metrics and measurement.